So hi again, hi all once again. My name is Jose Gomez. I use he, him, his pronouns, and I'm an assistant director here at UCSB. Specifically, I oversee our North neighborhood, which is our family student housing and our grad housing communities. We have a couple of hosts here that will be co-presenting with myself, and also some panelists and some RNCL staff. So before we transition to the next slide, I think it'd be good if we just popcorn, introduce ourselves, the lead staff, the housing staff that we currently have here. So yeah, names, pronouns, years, or your role, and then pass it on to the next person. All right. So and then anything else that you think would be fun or cool to share about you, like I don't know, what's your favorite Disney character that's a car or not? Whatever feels relevant for you. So with that, I will randomly select Cameron.
Oh, sorry, I was on multiple monitors. Hi, everybody. My name is Cameron. You are welcome to call me Cam. I am currently an assistant resident director over in San Clemente, which is our graduate housing. So I work with Jose. This is my first year in this role, so I've been having a great time. And the car comment was definitely geared towards me. My very favorite Disney character is Lightning McQueen, and I do use the word ka-chow unironically. So I will popcorn to Andy.
All right. Hey everybody. Hope you're all doing good. My name is Andy Barrera Rios. I'm a first year ARD, and I was an RA in the department before I got into this position. I'm the ARD for the Santa Fe Residence Hall, so I kind of work predominantly with like first years and second years and everything. And I think I feel like I'm not that too much into Disney, but I am for sure like a Marvel fanboy, so I'm gonna slide that in under on the Disney chain. But yeah, I'm gonna say I'll popcorn to Cecilia.
Hi everyone, my name is Cecilia, pronouns she, her, ella, and this is my second year as an ARD. I currently serve as the assistant resident director for San Miguel Residence Hall. Also not a big Disney fan, but if I had to choose one, it'd be Cinderella. It's been my favorite princess forever. I'll go ahead and popcorn over to Danielle.
Hello, everyone. My name is Danielle, she, her pronouns. I'm an ARD over at Manzanita this year, so it's predominantly first year, second year population. And this is my second year doing ARD. I'm also not the biggest Disney fan, not the biggest Marvel fan, but I do like anime. So yeah, I saw some thumbs up. I'm gonna popcorn over to Alex.
I'm Alex. I'm the assistant resident director over at Family Student Housing. We are predominantly grad students, but we do have undergrads. We've got newborns to, up through, retirees. We get the full spectrum of life. Just finished a year in this role. Been at UCSB about 4-ish, a little bit longer years. I'm probably going to butcher this and it's recording, so I'm going to embarrass myself on the internet for all time. Is Soul, is that a Disney movie or that's another one? That's a Disney one? Cool, I got it right. All right, I like that one. And I am going to pass to Terry.
Hi, everyone. My name is Terry Trengodum, she, her, and I'm the Director of Residential Student Life. And I have the pleasure of working with Jose and all the lead staff here. And I was an ARD myself many, many moons ago at UCLA. And I was wondering this too, similar to Alex, like I really enjoyed the Disney Pixar partnerships. So I think those tend to be my favorite movies. Let's popcorn to Elizabeth.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth. I'm currently a fourth year here at San Miguel. But I'm an RA at San Miguel right now. I'm working with Ceci. And yeah, I'd say my favorite Disney character is oh, that's a little tough. I'd have to go with You know, I'm gonna go with Marvel stuff in DC. Sorry, Andy. But yeah, going back to that, I love a lot of Marvel and DC characters, and I'd say Harley Quinn's my favorite from DC. But yeah. And then I'll popcorn to Bob.
Hello. So actually, my name is not Bob. That was more of a joke, just so I can make everyone feel a little bit welcomed. I am not currently an RA. I am actually a lead staff member. My name is Alex De Santiago. I am a lead staff member in Staniana's El Dorado and Westgate's apartments, so the undergraduate apartment community, one of the two. So great to meet y'all. My favorite car from Disney is Mater, so sorry, Cam, but no, vibes nonetheless. Ours all around are always amazing. So, yes, Jose, did we want to popcorn to everyone?
Sorry, I had my my mute in a different screen. I think I want to be mindful of time, right? Because we also have like a select time. So let's I would love to see it in the chat as well as some questions. So if you all maybe wouldn't mind introducing yourself, I will also stick around at the end after we finish recording if anybody would like to connect as well. But thank you all for sharing a little bit about yourself. I definitely didn't mean to start the Disney trend. It was more so a jab at Cam, but I'm glad it continued and everybody else shared a little bit about themselves. So thank you all. I will continue on with the slides here, and I'll do my best to monitor both the waiting room and the chat as well. But if there's anything that I need to point out or answer to, someone just draw my attention to it, okay? So again, thank you all for being here. This is the ARD info session for the 2024 hiring cycle. So we have the applications open as of March 1st, and they will close March 15th. We'll share a little bit more about that throughout the presentation. So table of contents, what you all will be getting today. So like I said, we did some intro and info, intros about ourselves. We will also be talking a little bit later with some panel members that are here today that they introduce themselves. We are going to do an ARD position overview, just kind of like what bare bones, what you can expect in every community. Obviously, it varies from community to community, but logistically, we want you all to have an insight of what it means to be an ARD as a whole here at UCSB. Briefly cover some position and benefits, as well as the timeline that we have here. And we will wrap up with the panel Q&A. So with that, I will transition to who will be hosting today. We do have myself again, Jose, Danielle, Cecilia, and Alex. They are a part of the ARD hiring committee. So we were the ones tasked with the privilege to get to connect with you all and share all the information that we've been working on, as well as what you will be expecting as you progress through this application cycle. So next.
So kind of from a bird's eye view, the ARD position is a full-time live-in position, meaning you will live in the community in which you work. And these contracts are either 10.5 or 12 months, depending on your placement. So communities like GA, where Cameron's at, and Family Student Housing, where I'm at, are 12 months because we have residents with us 12 months. So that's kind of that discrepancy there. And we're looking at a start date of August 1st, 2024. We are in the future, folks. And along with that, we are broken up into neighborhoods, communities that are either geographically close to each other and have some overlap in terms of demographic of residents. So there's our west neighborhood, which are the Sandcat Towers, north and south, along with SMSJ, that's Sierra Madre and San Joaquin. We love acronyms, so I'm going to try to not give acronyms for those of you who are, applying from out of UCSB. There's our north neighborhood, which is inarguably our best neighborhood because it is my neighborhood. So that's Family Student Housing and Graduate Apartments. That's Jose's domain as well, along with Cam. There's our central neighborhood, which is San Rafael, Manzanita, San Ynez, El Dorado, and Westgate. And our east neighborhood, so that's the Channel Island 5, Santa Rosa, Santa Cruz, Anacapa, San Nicolas, and San Miguel. And we've got a little someone from everywhere. So we got a good sampling with us today.
Before I go to the next slide, I did want to just pause here for a couple seconds in case people wanted to scan the QR code. But just wait like 2-3 seconds and then move on. Cool.
Okay, I'm now gonna go into some things that the job entails. So community development is one of them. We have implementation of a curricular approach. So lead staff will be trained on curriculum. Curriculum is basically an intentional way of connecting housing and learning outside the classroom. So that is something that we do actively within our jobs. You'll also be in charge of doing hall council advising. So hall council is a group of students who have say over how the building's funds get spent. So a lot of times there's like festivals that get put on for the communities. So that's something that you'll be overseeing as well. For RA supervision, you'll have to co-supervise a staff of resident assistants with typically your RD. Some communities have 2 ARDs, and you'll have 7 to 17 resident assistants based off what community you end up in. And then you also have weekly staff meetings and 1v1 meetings with the RAs. Student conduct and counseling is also something that you'll do with your job. So again, adjudicates, yeah, that's how you say that word. So you'll be adjudicating any policy violations that come in. Typically RDs do most of the policy violations, but it's very common for ARDs to take on some of those tasks as well. And then you'll be in charge of educating students and promoting responsible communal living amongst each other. And then the last big responsibility of ARD is departmental support. So as we're doing right now, we're helping to recruit more ARDs. That's something that you'll be doing, helping to recruit student staff and professional staff, and then assisting in the management of budgets for the community, programming and staff development. So again, how I referenced how council does like the festivals, that's something that you'll have to do as well. Okay, so for position benefits, you'll have, for compensation, there will be monthly paychecks, full benefits, paid time off, there's sick time and vacation time. You'll have an apartment within the residence halls or the apartments, the undergrad or grad apartments, and then a meal plan as well, depending on which area you're in. Opportunities include professional development, transferable skills, creativity and collaboration, working with students, lifelong learning, and then dynamic gap experience. A lot of people take on this job within their gap years because it is a contract position. So a lot of people say that it's a nice job to have during that time. And then flexibility, there are flexible work hours that are non-traditional. So sometimes you'll have to work extra hours on one day and you can be flexible with your schedule to take those hours off on another day. That's just an example. There's in-person and remote work hours and a variety of projects, and you can also diversify your work portfolio. And then in terms of connections, you can connect with folks from other areas of housing, dining, auxiliary, and enterprise. Also our residential operations team. And then you can also connect with our maintenance team here, our conduct team, and then our student leadership team, and much more.
All right, I'll be jumping into a couple of application and interview timeline details. So starting off with our primary consideration date, this was mentioned before, but again, It is March 15th, so we definitely encourage you to complete your application and submit it by this date because we'll start reviewing once March 15 hits. Following that, once we start reviewing, we'll start reaching out for interviews, and our process consists of 3 interview rounds. The first round being April 2nd through the 8th, round 2, April 18th and 19th, and round 3, May 1st through the 9th. Once those interview rounds are completed, any candidates that are selected can expect to hear from UCSB HR anywhere from mid to late May. So just a quick overview of our timeline. Definitely keep that March 15th date in mind as we'll begin looking through all the applications that are submitted on that timeline. Okay, now jumping into a couple of tips that the committee wanted to share with y'all to help you prepare throughout this process. First one being, again, time. Super important to submit your application by that deadline. We'll start reviewing and we'll start reaching out. So definitely encourage you to respond to any communication as quickly as you can in a timely manner and show up to any interviews that you are selected for on time. As you prepare for your application, we also encourage you to use the tools and resources around you. So as you're filling out your application, using spell check, that makes a big difference as we're reviewing applications. Also using online resources like LinkedIn, Higher Ed Jobs, or your institution or alma mater's career services. I know here at UCSB, our career services offer a lot of help with resume checks or mock interviews, and that makes a big difference before stepping into the actual interview. So I encourage you to use those resources and prepare for this process. Another big one that I definitely did was doing research. So getting familiar with the university, the department, and the position that you're applying for. I applied for this position. I was never an RA and I didn't have a lot of experience with this department. So I hopped on the website. I looked at what are the department values, what's the mission, how does that align with my experiences and my skills, and how can I communicate that during the interview. So definitely encourage you to look on that website, do your research, and prepare. I know interviews can be very nerve-wracking. There's a lot of anxiety that comes with it. So take some time to do those mock interviews, share your answers out loud, speak to yourself. That's what I did. And that really helped me feel more confident going into the interview. And it felt a little bit more natural as I was stepping into that space. So I encourage you to do the research and prepare. And then finally, communication is a big one. We definitely want to make sure that we are being supportive as a committee throughout this process for you. So keep us updated on your job search, or if you need any updates from us. We want to work with you. We understand you might have other decisions to make, so just communicate and we can make it work. And then this is the last slide before we jump into the panel. A couple of frequently asked questions. A lot of this information you might have seen on the posting, but just to cover it briefly one more time, where you can find the job posting, it's posted on our HR website. As Jose mentioned earlier, it went live on March 1st, and it's also posted on a couple of other hiring sites like Higher Ed Jobs, LinkedIn through different colleagues. So definitely take a look and you'll find more information about the job description itself. This is a full-time position, so you can expect to work 40 hours per week on average. Again, this may change depending on any major events that are going on or any meetings you might have, but for the most part, it ranges at about 40 hours per week. This position does also have full medical benefits. So progressively with the more hours you complete in this role, you'll be able to use those full medical benefits. In terms of placement, during the application process and the interview process, we'll go ahead and ask candidates for your preferences in terms of what communities you want to work in, but those preferences cannot be guaranteed. It'll ultimately come down to all the information we collect and how the committee reviews placements for the selected candidates. You do not need to submit letter of recommendations for this application process. However, you will HR will ask for references. So maybe start thinking of some references you might want to reach out to and put down for this process. In terms of when you can expect to hear back if you got the job, as mentioned before, sometime between mid-May to the end of May, you can expect to hear back from HR, and it'll be a phone call, and you can expect to receive an email from the committee for those that were not selected. And then lastly, in terms of communication, if you have any questions following this info session or throughout the process, we do have a committee email, which is listed right there, ucsbardSelection@gmail.com. Please feel free to reach out with any questions you might have. The committee will be monitoring the email throughout this process, and we'll try and get back to you as soon as possible.
Awesome. Thank you all. So, I mean, content wise, that's it. You all are ready to be ARDs. We've given you all that we have. Sorry, ARD applicants. I should have clarified. Yeah. Sorry, I am old and I like dumb dad jokes, and you all have to suffer. Thank you. But yeah, so that is everything we have. We do have a large amount of time to go into just some questions that you all can ask of our panelists. So we have, like we said, we have a lot of ARD power in this call. And so we have Cecilia, Alex, Danielle, who just presented to answer any questions, as well as Andy and Cameron. So, and you know, we have Alex de Santiago who joined us as well. So all of us who have experience as ARDs, we can jump in and answer any questions. We do have a list of questions that we anticipate being asked, but you all are welcome to put stuff directly into the chat. We definitely want to prioritize any questions that you all have, but maybe while you all are gathering those, we can start off with a couple of questions that we have. So, and you'll, again, yeah, Trevor, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I just realized that your last sentence was like, oh, we'll start off with some of the questions, but I do have a question if I could start with that.
Yes, go ahead.
My first question actually goes out to you guys, or any of you guys. Are any of you guys pursuing your master's while you're doing this job? And if so, does that feel manageable while you're an ARD?
I can jump in because I think so. Typically, we because it's a freshly out of undergrad, and our university doesn't have necessarily like a student affairs master's program. We don't typically have ARDs who are also getting their master's at the same time. Usually, this is kind of used as like a stepping stone for folks who want to go into a master's degree. But not to say it hasn't happened. It just also depends on like, does your program allow you to have a full-time 40 hours per week job that sometimes requires you to be on call and not have an after hours responsibility. So it has happened. It just is not the most common thing.
All right. Yeah, I was just curious on your position and anything along those lines.
Good question. Thank you.
Thank you. I also have I have a second question if no one else has questions, but I also want to give space for other people to ask questions first. So I'm gonna mute myself for a second and then.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, if anybody else has anything, we can start a chain, or we got a question in the chat. I want to know if there is the ARD live-in housing, like what? Yeah, I talked a bit. Anybody else want to answer this one?
I'm gonna say I can hop in on this one. Yeah, it's all paid for, so that's kind of nice. I'm gonna say I think more specific, yeah, water, power, gas is paid for. More specifically, we kind of talked about a meal plan. The meal plan here is 17 meals per week. So essentially the way it works is like 17 meals is like you have your employee card, you just like swipe. Plus internet, thank you, Alex. Yeah, I would just say you just swipe and it's like an all-you-can-eat buffet and everything. In terms of food, like I feel like I don't eat 17 meals like per week. Sometimes like I go out, I sometimes go back home to LA where both my parents are. But like it definitely, like for me, it definitely does help save money, not having to pay bills, especially like in this economy. So they're definitely like a big plus as well. And in terms of I don't know if you want to I don't know if you wanted to know about the conditions of the housing or like how it differs, or I don't know if that's something you're interested in. But yeah, I was gonna say it's fully furnished too, but
Thank you for the question. If anybody else wanting to jump in on that, we also a new one that we have is, well, we didn't have laundry covered. There are communal laundry rooms in every space, but we all, including students, had to pay for that. And just this year, there was a change to where it's included as part of the housing package as well. Cool. All right. We'll go Tamara and then Trevor at next.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Cool. Thank you, guys. I had a quick question, kind of jumping into the position itself a little bit more. focusing on the student conduct part. So I'm an RA in the San Ynez apartment complex. I work with Alex. And sometimes they get like a lot more piling up of residents who have to have like student conduct talks. I feel like when they get one, they just get another one and another one, another one. So I'm just curious to see how you guys balance that, because there'll be some weeks where it's a little bit more chill and then it's more intense. And how does that overall play within like the 40 hours work week as well?
That's a good question. I'm gonna start answering it, but any of the other panelists feel free to jump in. So in bigger communities, so like apartments, there's 2 ARDs. So they support with conduct. And then there's also a conduct liaison. So if the conduct just builds up to an extent that is too much for all the lead staff there, the conduct liaison can take on some cases and mediate that. I'd say too, within the 40-hour work week, we try our best to get to the conduct cases as soon as they come up. But they do appear on our docket in the order they come in. So once we handle one, we send out emails and say, okay, meet with us. And then once that kind of dies down a little bit, more conduct cases are piling up while that's occurring. And then it's a cycle. Like you just send out emails, hey, make sure to meet with me. And then once you meet with them, finish that out, another conduct case will occur.
Can jump in a little bit too. Thanks, Danielle. A lot of this job kind of is, kind of comes in waves, right? And it's not only the conduct. There are just a lot of different things. Like there'll be a committee work, for something like this, right? And then, there'll be kind of like a list of things that need to get done, and then they get done. There's lulls and there's waves. So part of that is like getting ahead on the things that you can kind of during some of those like quote unquote slower periods, but then also taking time to, not burn yourself out before you make it, because it's like it really it's like the cliche thing of like it's a marathon, but like it is a marathon. So being able to get your things done, but then also be able to unwind and unplug. And for me, what I found is just like scheduling is key. I never used Google Calendar before I was an RA, and now I don't think I could live without it. It's just really like the central hub, and being able to put other aspects in there too, besides just the like the specific tasks you're working on, like go for a walk, buy groceries, just to make sure you're able to sustain yourself throughout the the duration of the race. And that is what I got to contribute.
Also wanted to contribute, but also wanted to be polite and raise my hand. So thank you for everyone waiting. So as your supervisor, again, you are very aware of all the things that we handle in the university apartment specifically. There is a large amount of conduct in this specific area, and that's not necessarily like saying that there isn't in like any other areas. Sometimes just more escalated things in the apartments. So in terms of managing all of that, like Jose put in the chat, that is an excellent point. Communication is a very key aspect of that. So as ARDs, we also have supervisors. Like Danny said, we also have 2 ARDs in some areas because there is so much conduct, or so many students. And so working with each other to find balance, to say, hey, maybe this is too much on my plate and I need to like pass off this thing to you, or passing it off to a supervisor to say like, hey, I need some time for myself right now, trying to be mindful of not burning out. We also have amazing conduct officers who are also willing to help with conduct cases. Also, ADs are excellent in helping support us for different student concerns. We also have a peer review board where some student conduct cases get sent over for like peers to review. So there are many different elements to student conduct and managing that. But realistically, communication is like such a key part of that, to be mindful of how you're doing, so you can continue to support students 100%.
Thank you, Alex. Ezekiel, first, hi, good to see you again. Did you have a question or a follow-up comment? Because
Yeah, a question. So for the current ARDs, what is the most rewarding aspect of the position, and what is one of the more challenging duties as ARD?
I can jump in on this one. For me, the thing that is most rewarding is the things that I also served as a resident assistant in my undergraduate time, and I really enjoyed just working with people, and that is the thing that has carried over into this role, and is what inspired me to go into higher ed. And you get to meet all kinds of different people in like all different walks of life. So I work with the graduate students. All of my work previously had been with first year college students. And so there's a lot of opportunity to meet different people who are at different points in their journeys, and just learn about different folks, and get to share that experience in a really fun environment. I love the environment of working in housing. One thing that is a bit of a challenge, I suppose, is, and it's also a thing that I enjoy, and I thrive in that kind of environment, is just sort of a little bit of unpredictability at times. You know, we mentioned trying to schedule things to where you still have some flexibility, you can get things done, but you're kind of prepared if, you know, that big conduct case comes up that you need to go address. And that's one of those things that you really do learn with time. So I was able to learn some of that in my undergrad time, and then continue practicing that throughout my like 8 months that I've worked here so far as a professional. But it's one of those things that you keep learning it, and it feels a little bit tough at first, and then you'll feel it start to get a lot less tough as you go on in the role.
I can also speak on this one a little bit and share some of my experiences. I think for me, one of the most rewarding and my favorite parts of this role is definitely, like Cameron, the connections you make with the resident assistants, with the students. As ARDs, we also serve as advisors for the hall councils. So I get to work with a whole different group of students as well. And that's definitely my favorite part of it. Making those connections, helping with their growth as like students, as individuals, as leaders of their community. So that's definitely my favorite part, just connecting with them and witnessing their growth throughout the year. One of the more challenging aspects, I think for me, I've gotten a lot better at it, but at the beginning of my first year was setting those boundaries. I think with any live-in position, it can be a little bit difficult to do that because you're living where you work, and it can be really hard to not take work home with you. And I definitely did that at the beginning of my first year, but I think the department as a whole and my colleagues have been very supportive of setting those boundaries, encouraging you to take that time off to go home and leave the work in your office. So it's gotten a lot easier with the time that I've been serving in this role, but I think it could be a challenge at the beginning, especially for me because I was never an RA. I didn't have that type of experience. So it was a challenge, but definitely a lot better at setting those boundaries now. And it creates a lot more of a healthy relationship with the work that I do.
thank you all. I do see, so Trevor's been waiting, so let's have Trevor ask the question, and then we can go into the one in the chat. If it's a question, I still got to read it, but Trevor, you're up.
Awesome. Thank you. One of the questions that I have for you all is, I feel like authentic engagement, both with students, but also as a staff, is really important, and how like connecting with my coworkers is also super important, that I can feel like I can be my true self around them. How do you guys feel that now that I have all of you guys to hopefully I don't make it awkward between anyone, but how do you guys feel like you all connect as a staff? Do you guys feel like you get to get along, do check-ins with each other, and or get to just hang out outside of work hours?
Sure. Yeah. I was gonna say I kind of wanted to like hop in on that question. Yeah, I think definitely. I think that the job's kind of weird because like we all kind of live like within like a 10-minute radius like maximum, or like some other people live with like in walking distance. And I think that like we definitely do it's very easy to like kind of like get caught up in the work, but I think there is like an effort that like everybody tries to do to like hang out and everything. Like for example, I was hanging out with some of the ARDs watching like a movie last night or something like that. Or like I'll go like hiking with Alex sometimes, so shout out to Alex. So it's kind of like excursions like that we do, and I think it's ultimately not just, I think that it's because we're coworkers, and I think that we all get along and like have these like friendships with each other, but I think it's also like a system of support as well, you know, because we have our supervisors as well, and like and ADs to support as well, but I think also having that like ARD like communication of just like, oh, like what are you doing, what are you struggling with, like, and trying to learn from each other, I think is most helpful as well. Especially, yeah, because we kind of like, I think, push ourselves to kind of like make like we push ourselves to kind of also have a personal life outside of the job, and I think that we definitely try to do that. So
Thank you. Happy to hear it. That's kind of like the answer that I wanted to hear, so I appreciate that.
Alex, I saw you raise your hand. Did you want to chime in?
Yeah, just thanks, Jose. Yeah, just to add, you like have to bring yourself to like your real self to this kind of work because you live where you work, so you can't like put a mask on. You know, and so it's kind of like a natural thing. It's not like a planned like, oh, we got to do this like thing to like kind of create some sense of gel between the team. It's just something that kind of like comes about naturally. So even when we have like our staff meetings, like our all lead staff meetings, there's always time for people to connect, you know, and just like informally beforehand. Some people show up early. There's a lot of conversations lingering afterwards. And, you know, it wouldn't be like that if people didn't enjoy each other's presence. You know, I love eating lunch with all these folks when I see them. So, you know, there's definitely a big sense of camaraderie amongst us.
Awesome. Awesome. Love to hear it.
All right, unless anybody else is going to jump in. I actually realized because we're recording, it's probably best if I read the questions in the chat, so that way the folks know what you all are answering. So this one says, on the summary of job duties, it says ARDs serve in after hours crisis response. How many times per week are ARDs on call overnight on duty? Do ARDs get compensated for working this night shift, or is it flex time?
And jump back in here. So we actually serve on the professional on-call rotation. So if anybody is not familiar with the on-call processes at UCSB, the RAs are on call on a nightly basis. So there's an RA from each staff that is going to hold the phone and intercept any calls that are coming in from residents who need help with lockouts or if there's an emergency situation. And the RAs hold the phone for one night at a time and then pass it off to the next person. At the professional on-call level, we hold the phone for 1 week at a time. So it works out to where, you know, between here and my last institution, you know, it was a smaller team and I was on call significantly more often. I'm actually only on call for 2 weeks for this whole year. So I already did one of mine and I've got one more week coming up in the summer. And it feels intimidating at first when you hear that you're on call for a full week. It's like, am I ever gonna sleep? How am I going to manage that? But it's one of those things where you really just plan, you know, that week ahead of time. We make that schedule at the beginning of the academic year, so you know when you're going to be on call, and you can sort of plan to be here, plan to be laying low, and be available for things, and get through that week. You have lots of support as well from the rest of your team. There isn't any additional compensation that is part of our regularly assigned duties, but you know, sometimes if there's a call that's going, you know, way into the middle of the night, you're out for a long time, you can connect with your management if you are needing a little bit of extra support going into that next working day. But yeah, it's one of those things that feels a little bit intimidating at first to be on for a full week rather than one night. But for the most part, you're able to just, you know, plan to be around, to be laying low, and then kind of take it a day at a time and see what comes in.
And just to echo off of Cam on that one. Sometimes it does warrant like flex time, if that wasn't made clear for folks. So it could be you get a day back, or you start the next day a little bit later. So yeah, we do our best to be flexible with you all as well. Okay. Good job, Cam. I think I covered that one. The next question in the chat is, how is working with Hall Council, particularly at the beginning of the year when starting off? And also, how much do you and your area's ARDs collaborate with each Hall Council, as well as communicate about how each Hall Council is going? Good question.
I can answer this one. I'm gonna try to break it up though. Working with Hall Council, for me, I've overseen areas with mostly freshmen for my 2 years as ARD. So a lot of the time when people are coming into college for the first time, they're nervous to join things like this. There's some people that are very excited about it, but there's other people that are like thinking they lack the confidence in order to have a position on Hall Council. So it takes a lot of work to get your RAs to promote it, sending out building-wide emails, things like that. But both years I've had great experiences watching the students grow a lot into their roles. There's some students that might need more of a push in order to meet their program requirements. But again, I've noticed that it's a lot of the confidence part of it, them not having the full confidence in order to be fully immersed into their position. But again, I've loved seeing the growth that a lot of my members have had, and we're doing great so far. So, and then how much do you do for your areas, and how much do they collaborate? So for me, I'm over in the area called Farside. So that's where Manzanita and San Rafael are right next to each other. So my Hall Council is, well, as an ARD, I'm mostly looped in on Andy's Hall Council because he's in San Raf and he's looped in on my Hall Council. We haven't had our main collaborative events yet, but the main collaborations between different building Hall Councils are usually in spring quarter when the festivals go on. So we're going to have our Farside Festival in spring, and we'll need a lot of volunteer recruitment for that, things like that. And then how's each Hall Council going? Yeah, again, I think I said Farside Fest 2024. I touched on that a little bit, but if you have any more specific questions about it, I'm free to answer those as well.
Thank you, Danielle. Terry is gonna scoot out for another commitment, but I don't know, Terry, anything you want to say to our candidates?
Thanks, Jose. I was just telling Jose in the private chat, I'm short on wisdom right now and everybody's got it covered. So, but thank you for the invite. No, I would say, I get so excited every year to work with our ARD candidates and see all the wonderful talent come our way. So I'm just so happy that you're here and you're so invested in this potential opportunity. And we're excited to see you show your best. And that is really the ultimate goal of this time with you, is to help you be at your best when you through the process. And so if there's anything that the committee can do to help you with your job search process to make it more smooth, let the committee know. And I'm excited to see you all through the process eventually. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for being here as well.
Bye,
Thanks,
everyone.
Terry.
Bye.
All right, folks. I see another question in the chat. It says, I was wondering what ARD responsibilities come with the job during academic breaks, since the residence halls are closed. And also wanting to name for those of you that don't know, the apartment communities, those remain open. So depending on where you're placed, your students might still be around. But yeah, anybody want to answer that question?
I can go ahead and start off. So during the breaks, like Jose mentioned, I worked in the apartments last year, so there was still a lot of residents around. But it is typically very quiet this year in San Miguel, which is a first-year residence hall. Most of the residents head out for break, but there is a small number that stay. But it's very quiet, and our workload takes a shift during this time. Most of it is going to consist of you preparing for the next quarter. So I know when fall quarter ended, Abby, my supervisor, and I were just getting ready for the next quarter and starting to plan ahead. So most of the time will consist of that, kind of you coordinating with your supervisor. There is a lot more flexibility because residents aren't there. So I know a lot of times you can work from home a little bit more or move around your schedule as needed. So it's typically very quiet, and it's more prep time for you to prepare for the next quarter.
One thing to note, just to sort of piggyback off of that, is depending on which breaks we're looking at. So for our winter breaks, our students in our residence halls mostly head out. A few do stick around, but we work for a good chunk of that winter break. So right up until sort of the holiday week, and then depending year to year what the calendar looks like for the university, there's certain days where we will be off, and we are off for those traditional holiday days that most companies do close for, and then we have some additional days off in that break. Spring break, we will work the full way through. And then in the summer, it depends on which area you are located in. So for those of us over in the apartment communities, we will be here, our students will be here, we will be chugging right along. But it looks a little bit different for other areas where the contract is 10.5 months. And we sort of just balance things out and make sure that we are getting geared up for the next academic year. So depending on the break, it will look a little bit different. But for the most part, working through those breaks, and then, they communicate very early what that's going to look like.
Thank you both. One last thing I did want to know about that is that I was reading the chat, so if I'm repeating what someone said, please interrupt me quickly. But some of the ARDs are in a 10th month contract and some are in a 12-month contract. And it just kind of depends because of some communities that remain open. So those folks will work through the summer. A lot of the ARDs in the 10-month contract, they will have a break in their contract, and then they will be coming back as of August 1st again of the following academic year. So just wanted to name that. We do our best to be as transparent as possible, and so that's something that for folks to know, that sometimes you get a vacation. Ezekiel, I want to go in order of the questions in the chat. So after Claire's, we can come back to you. Okay. But the next one is, what are some of the main differences in commitments for being an ARD at the rest halls versus the apartments and or family student housing? Should I answer? I don't know, like before, I mean, I guess I kind of oversee most of those things.
I think you have the most experience with both sides.
All right, fair. I'll take this one. Thank you all. Yeah, I was also an ARD in the past. I should have said that in my introduction. But some of the main differences in commitments for being an ARD, I would say the commitments themselves, they're pretty much the same. It's just, for example, in the undergrad in the residence halls, you have hall councils. In the undergrad apartments, you have SAC. In graduate housing, you have GSAC. And family student housing, there's a tenants union that the lead staff have nothing to do with. It's more so community members that are responsible for those tenant union meetings. So that's the difference, but really like the community leadership aspect of it is that everybody pretty much will jump in at some point to do any of the conduct. you all collectively with your supervisors will be meeting with your team of resident assistants, and you kind of like decide your schedule of what makes sense for you all. Weekly meetings, bi-weekly meetings, an hour or 30 minutes. Usually we start at an hour because we really want to build those relationships and connect with our team, but also depending on the busyness of the future quarters, people have chosen to go to a 30-minute meeting time. So it varies in that sense. And then really what the rest of the stuff that kind of keep you busy is the amount of conduct of students of concern that come up, the type of programs that your hall council is doing, or your student community councils. So I would say, yeah, in family student housing and in grad housing, you do tend to see higher level cases. We do have, people in their master's and their PhD programs, which can be intimidating. I will name that. And even for me in my role, having people throw out words that I need to look up in the encyclopedia is not fun. But they flex those muscles. They got those muscles, and I don't. So, but we do our best, and we understand and we support you all in the best way we can of like, hey, we picked you for this community. We trust you can do the job. Even though at times it feels stressful and impactful. And we really want you all to be able to name that to us. But I would say, again, just generally speaking, the commitments are the same. It's just things kind of tend to fluctuate depending on if it's a busy week, if it's a busy quarter, if you're doing a lot of programs, if you're doing a festival. It just tends to change your time that you're busy. So ARDs, did I fake it well? Did that cover decently the stuff? Okay. All right. Got a lot of thumbs up, but also I'm an AD, so they can probably just be lying to me, but this is what you got. All right, y'all. So one more question in the chat, and then Ezekiel, and then tomorrow. Okay. All right, y'all. So is it possible to get pay transparency? Is the pay salary based on hourly pay? Pay transparency, like trying to see like how much you all get paid. I will say the positions of the ARDs are in a contract base, so it doesn't necessarily, you don't have to clock in. And also because you are on call, like if you show up to work and you kind of like, maybe you work the 6 hours of the day and then you get a massive headache or you had a doctor's appointment. If you leave, you don't have to clock that in as like a sick day because you worked half of the day or more. But we just kind of treat it as like, okay, they work the whole time. So there is some flexibility for you to do other stuff. And you're not needing to clock in or clock out. So if you showed up for the day, you're getting paid for the day. If you're not showing up, you could use sick time, you could use vacation time, or some pre-approved flex time, depending on how busy your weekend or your on-call was. And you will still get paid for the day. And it's a fixed salary like every single month. So even though we have some months that are longer and we have some months that are shorter, you're still getting paid the same amount because you're getting paid for the year, not so much per shift or per hour. And then the last piece about pay transparency, I don't remember the exact number, and I also, I don't want to put the ARDs in that spot to say how much they get paid, but I will say it's pretty comparable with the field. And then given also our location and cost of living here, it is, I would say, is pretty. On my personal belief, and others may disagree, I feel like the pay is good enough just to support those folks that are living here and working with us for the time being. Now, depending on your lifestyle, you might disagree, but again, it's comparable for the field and for the role. So yeah, I hope that helps. Oh, and usually some of these jobs, they're also up for pay increases due to like inflation and all those different things. So there's always, there's over summer, sometimes there's an increase. So that's why it's also hard to name the exact pay of each person, because it may, by the time you start, it might be slightly different. Okay, hope that helps. Sorry, Ezekiel had a different question. So we'll go there. Trevor, are you on your way out or?
No, I was just trying to be helpful if needed, because I had the job application site pulled up if you wanted the number, but
Yeah, if the
Don't have
number's
to.
there, you go ahead and say,
Um,
this, yeah.
The number that I saw that shows on the application currently, I don't know, it seemed very nice to me, but it was 57,100
Yeah,
is what I saw as the yearly salary, which at least I've been applying to all the other jobs, and that is very comparable, like you said, to all other positions.
sure, yeah. Thank you for looking that up. Appreciate it. All right, Ezekiel, Tamara, and then I think Trevor had a question in the chat, so we'll go in that order.
I was just a clarifying question with the contract, the 10.5 month versus the 1 year. And since there is a possibility to renew for another year, if you were in a 10.5 month contract, would your housing would you not have housing during the break until August 1st? Or like in that situation, would you just have like temporary housing, or like do you just go back home? Do you like, what does that look like?
I think I can let a returner ARD answer that because you all experienced that this last summer.
Yeah, so you either have the option to, so if you're moving buildings, so for example, this year, I'm in Manzanita, whereas last year I was in Santa Rosa. You do have to move all your stuff out. I lived with another ARD over the summer who chose to just keep their stuff there and pay for rent, so we split half. So yeah, you have the option of moving your stuff out and back home for the summer, or you can stay in the building. You just have to pay rent.
Yes, we don't kick people out, but we do coordinate a plan of like, are you gonna be on a payment plan or for whatever that time being, or if you're like, I'm gonna go on vacation, you're very much encouraged to do that as well. So it all varies. We communicate with you all to figure out what makes sense for you. All right. Tamara, thank you.
Yes, so I had a question talking about your guys' connection with RAs. So I know that my staff, my lead staff, has like a really good, meaningful connection with us. They do one-on-one meetings. If they're going to make a big change, they meet up with the returners and stuff like that, which I really value. So I'm just wondering, what are some things you guys have been implementing or implemented in the past to maintain that good connection with RAs? Because I feel like that makes sure that the whole process overseas is very stable. So I was just curious to learn more about that.
Well, I would say I think I could hop on this. So we can ask like what we do to like to stay connected with the RAs. Are you thinking more like department wise or more individually like what we do as ARDs?
I think more your guys' position ARDs, like you're saying.
Got it, for sure. Yeah, so I was gonna say, I think, well, first we have our one-on-ones, so that's like a huge help, in connecting with the RAs, just because like, well, in the residence halls, we all live in the same building, but with departments, it's spread out, so it's a little bit harder. And during our one-on-ones, like I tell RAs like, yo, like this is your time and space for me to provide you support. Like sometimes we have like working one-on-ones where we like plan programs, check in with like resident concerns, or sometimes it's a little bit more on the fun side. Like I have a cat living with me, so sometimes I tell RAs I'm comfortable with them like going by and like like playing with my cat, or sometimes we go on like coffee runs or something like that, or get like a cups of matcha and everything. And so I do things like that. Another thing that I've tried to implement this quarter is like kind of like scheduled outings after hours, which is not like required for the job. It's your decision. But with my RAs, I did like 3 outings this entire quarter, which it doesn't seem like a lot, but like I feel like when you're just doing work, it pops up frequently. But we would leave like at 7. We would go to like Wendy's or like In-N-Out or something like that, and just like hang out and everything. I remember one time, like I think the biggest one was like Wendy's, and it was like I want to say like 8 members of our team just eating in the parking lot, we're just there for vibes and everything. I think that one thing I regret is not doing that for fall quarter, because you do see that like as the year progresses, like RA start getting more independent, and it's not a bad thing at all for sure. But it's like establishing that connection. So like, it's like that thing that fall quarter is crucial. So that's what I try to do. Ultimately, I always would like check in on the personal lives. I'm like, it's not that it's required, but I just like, oh, how you doing as a person? You know, I feel like that approach is how I do it. But ultimately, it's just different approaches and what people feel comfortable with too, because some people also want that boundaries as well.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else or anything else? I think, did we advertise 5 to 6:30? For those of you, those considering applying, was there a time limit? Because we're definitely not gonna go until forever, but I want to be mindful of the time and prioritize any specific questions that you all have. Cool. Well, on my calendar invite, it says 6:30. So I will keep going until then. But if there are no more questions, the panel, oh, Ezekiel, go ahead.
Just one, like, so it said the application that, does it review starting March 15th, or is that like when to turn in the application? Like, what does the timeline look like hiring wise after we turn in the application?
Let me try to, oh, I'm still sharing screen. Whoops. So I believe that was a bit covered on the slide. Oh, that's our beautiful ARD saying thank you. I was saving that to the end. Timeline. So we do have, again, the 15th is the priority application deadline. And so anybody who can get an application in by then, that's when we're gonna for sure review everybody's application. After that, it's kind of on a rolling basis. I will say, just pro tip, this is a pretty competitive application pool from year to year. Usually we get, you know, between 70 and 90 applications, and our amounts vary from year to year. I think right now we're anticipating about 7 positions. But all of that to say is we will read everybody who submits by the priority deadline. And then after that, if we for some reason feel like we just weren't able to hire enough, then we would look back for any of those who maybe applied afterwards. So we will typically start off with our original deadline and then kind of go from there. And then as you see here on the slides, you see the interview timeline of round 1, round 2, and then round 3 would be our final interview process. All right. Let's see, one more question in the chat. On the application, it says a required qualification is comprehensive knowledge of UCSB campus resources and support services. How likely is it for a non-UCSB alumni to get this position, given that they thoroughly research the resources available to UCSB residents and present a strong application? I mean,
I am happy to jump in on this one because I am not UCSB alum and I'm not even UC alum. I completed my undergrad at a very small STEM school in Prescott, Arizona. So it's totally likely. I did it. You can do it too. I would say that's where the research piece really is very important. I spent a lot of time on the housing website leading up to my interviews. Even prior to submitting my application, I was checking things, trying to pick out things that really resonated with me, and gain that knowledge. It's okay if you can't rattle off all the acronyms right off your head because you've never heard them before. And so, you know, in my interview processes, I definitely couldn't rattle off acronyms, and it took time for me to learn those things, but just get familiar with what is available online, and just keep those things in mind and be knowledgeable about what kinds of resources. Even if you can't remember the specific name, that's okay. But you know, I saw online that there's some kind of counseling service that is available for students, so definitely dive into that research and learn lots of things about the campus in general, and the campus history, and even, you know, the area. I had never been to Santa Barbara before I got this job. So definitely just dive into that research, and don't let it intimidate you that you did not go to this university. Everybody brings their own set of experiences and knowledge, and that is important and exciting. So bring your authentic self to that interview and do your research beforehand.
Just to out one more person here, Alex de Santiago is also not a UCSB alum, and they're doing great. And technically Alex isn't Zeller either, but he was already living here by the time he got hired. So it is possible for sure. Any other questions? No. I did want to say, if we're waiting for a couple more, panelists, you all received an email with a couple questions there. I don't know if you all saw any of them that you're like, oh, that's a good question that we haven't really touched on. Maybe let me bring it up. Yeah, something that you think would be helpful for our candidates to hear.
I tell people that are applying that this job takes a very strong sense of self. Just because you are required to show up for a lot of people, in a lot of different ways. So knowing what resets you, knowing your work-life boundaries, things like that can be very helpful.
Thank you. Yes, for sure. Stay open to learning about yourself, about the role, stepping into a little bit of that uncomfortable space, because that's when you'll do your best learning.
I think I was trying to find the email with the questions. I remember seeing it, but I kind of forgot. But I guess to kind of chime in on just random advice as well. I think that I think generally everybody here on the call really does enjoy working with students. I think for me, I definitely find that the most rewarding aspect of helping students get to where they want to go. And I think for me, the experiences that I've gone through, for me, the way I see it is I'm going through this thing so I could pass along that information to somebody and hopefully help somebody out. But at the same time, it is as much as I definitely do enjoy being with students, it can sometimes be tiring for sure. Or even sometimes with hall council meetings, have to foster my energy and be okay, had a bad day, but I'm gonna try to do my best to have that energy for them and be that leader for them. So ultimately, I think enjoy the process, I feel. And I think it's also it's okay to take care of yourself and be balanced, because I realized when I wasn't taking myself personally, I wasn't present for my job, if that makes sense. And with the job, sometimes you have students of care. So ultimately, it's just making sure you have that balance overall, which is hard because it's you live where you work, but you do have to be intentional about it. But obviously, I also saw another question there too, so I'm gonna give an opportunity for other people to respond. But
Cool. Yeah, let's step into this question on the chat, but then after that, again, panelists, if you all have one that comes to mind and we have time, then we can go from there. But the question is, how is the working environment? How supported are staff by the department? Are there mental health resources available to staff, especially during the week-long duty round? Are ARDs required to do duty during federal holidays?
oh, no, you go, Alex. You go, King.
Thank you, King. So wanted to add, not add, start. The working environment. Personally, I really enjoy it, in an interpersonal sense. Coming from a different place, a different university entirely. I came from UCLA, and so it was a big adjustment for me moving over here to Santa Barbara, starting at a new university, completely fresh, anew. And so in terms of the environment, I feel like this is a department where you feel very supported by your peers. I felt very welcomed. Like we started off with like beanbag tosses and like building teams, and me and Cam tore it up. Um, so personally, the working environment I think is really amazing. I also have an RD, so resident director, who's our supervisor, which she's so amazing. She supports me in so many different ways, whether that's professionally, personally, emotionally. Like I truly feel supported by my supervisor and even my supervisor's supervisor. So my AD, similar, not similar, but Jose's role. Jose is not my AD, but my Jose, she's super awesome, super supportive. I can have like such amazing conversations where I can provide feedback that is like constructive and get solutions and feel so supported in my role. So again, working environment, very amazing, very supportive. Um, as for mental health resources, I will let someone else touch on that one because I honestly am not aware.
Honestly, oh, sorry, Jose, you know.
Go ahead. I was just, if no one else like the mental health resources for staff, I was gonna speak on that, but you can go ahead first.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I was gonna say in terms of like mental health resources, I think definitely like touching on that, like your RDs, your ADs are systems of support. And I think that like I think systemically, I don't know if how if we have access to like student resources because it is a little different when you're not paying for those resources. I personally like never seek them out, but like you do have like that support from like your like supervisors and everything. And I think ultimately like it's I think just having that flex time really does help out a lot for sure because like it's kind of weird because like sometimes like we have meetings like for example RA meetings are Wednesdays from 6:30 to 8:30 and it's like that I think that flex time does help out with mental health but yeah but say I'll let Jose touch on that a little bit more.
Yeah, so just to circle back on to that part of the question. Yeah, I believe typically staff do not get to use the student resources just because they're funded with student pay, right? Or fees. But we do have similar offices, one called Academic and Staff Assistance Program, and the acronym is ASAP, but that is specifically for our professional staff as well as like our faculty. So there is additional support in that sense. Also with your benefits, folks on their own are able to go and seek like counselors, therapists, psychiatrists, all the different things they need in addition to physical ailments as well. So with your own benefits, you're able to find that. Pro tip, look for that as soon as you can because this area tends to be pretty impacted in the sense of just where we live. There's not a lot of resources like, for example, LA. The resources are a little bit tighter to find, and so it does take a lot of time. Even if your benefits don't necessarily kick in until a specific period of your hours worked, you could start doing your research early and start trying to get appointments as early as possible, so that way you don't have to wait even longer when those resources kick in. So. Oh, and then are ARDs required to do duty during federal holidays? Yes, like for example, it just depends on if you are on call, whatever week that holiday kicks in. We do ask for preferences. So if you're like, I don't want to work this specific holiday, then we do our best to not give you those. And we have a large enough team where typically that's not an issue. But if you do work a holiday where the rest of the university is closed, you do get a flex day back. So you get to then choose when you take that additional time back. But because, we are in a housing department, we kind of have to be someone has to be always available 24/7. And so that's part of the on-call rotation. All right, y'all brought a lot of good questions. We didn't even have to look through our list and we're practically at time. So good job to you all. We do have 10 minutes, but I also want to be mindful if some of you have to go, you all are welcome to. But yeah, any last minute questions?
From me personally, I don't have any. I also just wanted to shout out the Mewtwo quote that you have in the back. I thought that was sick. So that was awesome.
Thank you. You
but-
are hired. I'm sorry. I shouldn't be.
Oh,
I shouldn't be saying that. But yes,
I still love the jokes.
I got a Pokeball. I got a Naruto thing. Yeah, it's.
Oh, dude, I have my Dragon Ball Z. I have a Vegeta case. Got Goku as my screen and my wallet. Same thing. Have them all matched so that whenever I lose them, anyone always knows whose they belong to, which is awesome.
I'll give you my email later so we can geek out.
All right, sounds like a plan.
All right, y'all. Anything else from folks? Thank you for this information. Yes. Yeah, likewise. Thank you. Well, thank you all for spending the last hour and a half here with us. Just to wrap up again, best of luck with the process. Oh, now I get to show the final slide. Yeah. So thank you all. If you have any questions, we did show here the email, and we are starting to check it a little bit more regularly now that the cycle has officially started. So want to end there again if you all want to write it down. But outside of that, I hope you all have a good evening. Thank you all for being here. And I hope you all do well. Take care. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so